An illegal Somalian boat migrant was just convicted of randomly murdering a father of three. A Romanian migrant who stabbed an 11-year-old girl 8 times will not face attempted murder charges. And to top it all off, we just paid an illegal migrant paedophile predator an entire year's salary in his home country. And how seriously do you think our Justice Secretary, David Lammy, is taking all of it?
Calamity Lammy strikes again. It's a national embarrassment. He has perfected the art of performative outrage to a T.
Well, there you go. Those stories I just read have broken in the last 24 hours in this country. It was revealed this morning that the Ethiopian paedophile Hadush Kabatu was given what I'm calling an illegal migrant sex predator golden parachute payment. This dangerous sexual predator who assaulted a 14-year-old girl in Epping has been given £500 by our government. And before you roll your eyes, I just want to tell you what £500 works out to in Ethiopia. Well, it works out to 1,500 Ethiopian birr. I know that doesn't mean anything to any of you, but get this. That is the average salary of an Ethiopian, which is 100,600 Ethiopian birr. So despite all his crimes, we've just given him a year's salary so he can live like a king in Ethiopia. And in yet another insult to his young victim, Sky News are treating him like some sort of quasi-celebrity, jetting out to Ethiopia to do an exclusive interview with him. And I just want to remind them, this man is a convicted paedophile, not a movie star. We wouldn't be doing that at GB News, let me tell you that for sure. And do you remember the homeless Romanian migrant who allegedly headlocked an 11-year-old Australian girl, then proceeded to stab her 8 times right in the middle of Leicester Square in central London in broad daylight? Well, that psychopath pleaded guilty to wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, but denied the charge of attempted murder. He will not face trial for attempted murder after the Crown Prosecution Service said they weren't pursuing it. This is despite the fact, I just want to remind you, that he is said to have stabbed an innocent child 8 times. It is shocking. And I'm not finished. In more news today, a Somalian boat migrant who was known to police in 4 countries randomly murdered father of 3, Govinda Singh Jahal, all because his asylum application was rejected. And that's what our court has heard, before he then calmly walked out of the bank where he committed his murder. I mean, for Christ's sake, how much more of this are we going to take? Should we just put up massive advertisements in every hellhole around the world that reads, "Come to Britain, get free accommodation and expenses paid for, skip the queue for NHS healthcare. Oh, and while you're here, some of you might molest and rape our women and children, and we'll just lock you up for a few months in a low-security prison somewhere. And if you're unlucky enough to get caught and thrown in prison, you might win the weekly lottery and be one of the 5 people released early by accident, and even then, we'll just deport you back home and make sure you've got a year's salary to make sure you can live like a king." We have become a clown kingdom. There is no other way to describe it. And I'm sick to death. And genuinely, I'm sure many of you are at home as well, just becoming increasingly angry at the state of our country. It's really important, amongst all of this madness, we do not forget the people that have paid the ultimate price for this experiment. So I want to take a moment to read the names of the victims murdered by illegal migrants in the United Kingdom. Jaro Medina, Chrissy Archibald, James McMullen, Sebastian Belange, Alexandre Pigard, Sebastian Ricard, Xavier Thomas, Ignacio Echeverria, Sarah Zelenak, Jodie Miller, Dr. Jerome Ensink, Emily Jones, James Furlong, Dr. David Wales, Joseph Ritchie Bennett, Lorraine Cox, Terence Carney, Govinda Danny Jahal, Rhiannon Sky White. Those are just some of the names because there are currently active cases and trials ongoing, and I'll read them out as soon as I get the chance to. They must be considered innocent until proven guilty, of course, and then I will read out those other names. I'll finish up with this. I am not going to rest until we deport every single one of those illegal migrants that have broken into this country and foreign criminals who think we are just some playground for their disgusting antics. But let's get the thoughts of my panel. Director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, property expert and Reform UK councillor, Russell Quirk, and journalist and broadcaster, Nina Mishkov. Mark, I'll start with you. I really wanted to make sure we include the names of those victims, by the way. I hope people don't think it's in poor taste. I just think we talk about the perpetrators all the time, but we never talk about the victims. And I want their names to be remembered in some way. We're getting to a breaking point in this country. There are cases almost every single day where the goodwill of British people has been exploited by people who've broken into this country, committed a crime, and then managed to somehow stay here for indefinitely, some of them.
Yes, I think it's worse than that, right? I think it's even worse than that. So you've touched on, the personal elements of it, the real people who have died in real crimes. The fury and the anger is that our system seems completely unwilling and incapable of dealing with it. I mean, this case of this Ethiopian chap, Kabatu, it is almost literally unbelievable. Okay, so we get an illegal migrant who sexually assaults a 14-year-old girl. Eventually he ends up in prison. He's wrongly released from prison. On 4 occasions says, you've wrongly released me from prison, to which we say to him, no, calm down, mate, we'll give you 70 quid so you can have a day trip to London and escort you to the railway station. And then, according to reports, when he starts to get potentially disruptive about his flight home, because he was saying he wanted to be deported, they pay him off with 500 quid to stop that disruption. So the system seems geared not to the British people, but to these sort of chaps. And that, I think, is what's causing real anger. If there was, there's always going to be a certain level of grim violence on our streets, not all brought about by migrants. But what you want to know in those circumstances is that it's being minimised. And when it happens, the justice system, the policing system, and the prison services are capable of properly dealing with it, and none of them are. Yeah. And that's where the fury's coming from, I think.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Mark. It is this complete fracturing of systems that we pay for, and we're being asked soon enough, I would have thought, to be paying even more into a system that is not benefiting, in my opinion, British people in many ways.
That roll call of victims that you just read out, is harrowing. And frankly, let's be honest, just call it as it is, an absolute disgrace to this country, isn't it? The social contract that's supposed to exist between the public and our government that have one primary job, and that is to keep their population safe, that has completely and utterly broken down. And not just with this government, I would argue the previous one too. Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick can stand up at the dispatch box all they like, criticise the Labour government for where we are. Let's be honest, the Conservatives were not much better. So we are in a horrendously perilous position, I think, where these are not isolated incidents. The fact that you've just reported, this is 3 such incidents just in 1 week, is an absolute disgrace. But if we want to talk about the kind of subject of money, I asked yesterday ChatGPT what the cost of this Kabatu character was. Bearing in mind, by the way, that roll call of victims, all of those people would still be alive if we'd had a stronger policy with regard to strengthening our borders. But the cost of housing Kabatu as an illegal migrant, taking him through the justice system, putting him in prison, albeit very, very briefly, and then the pathetic actual manhunt, because it wasn't really a hunt, was it? It was waiting for a member of the public to see a man in prison pyjamas with a bag with avocados on it, wandering around a park. Do you know what the total cost of Kabatu has been to this country, excluding the 500 quid, by the way? £252,000 is what that criminal, that paedophile, has cost the taxpayer. It's an absolute disgrace.
It's a good point, isn't it? And he won't be the only one. That cost will keep on spiralling as long as people are allowed to stay here. Nina, I think the British public are at a turning point. They don't know what to do. I've seen videos of people crying in phone calls into other channels because they can't, they've had friends murdered, they're worried about their children. At what point do we need to say the first rule of government is to protect its own? And actually we need to start deporting these people and show a strong message that coming here illegally isn't the right option, and we need to know who they are before they get here.
Well, of course, all of these situations are dreadful, and nobody would say otherwise, and it is appalling. But let's face it, you cannot turn around 14 years of disaster of the Tory government. You cannot, because they left behind a prison system that was completely full, a justice system that was broken, and a police force that had been depleted. What were they going to do? You cannot, as I said, you cannot turn that around in 15 months.
I take that point, by the way. I'm not putting all the blame on Nina for the migrant crisis or the prisons crisis. Go on, Nina, finish.
But it's been a complete catastrophe, and they are trying. I mean, how long does it take to build a prison? Did the Tories build any prisons? No. OK, so you need to give them time to do that. But the trouble is that
why can't we just start deporting these people? We have planes.
They shouldn't be here in the first place.
Because you need arrangements with other countries.
Other countries, but we were just proven we can do it. We just proved by deporting
in 24 hours.
No. Kibatu, we don't have an agreement with Ethiopia. We have an arrangement, which is a different thing. And they needed to do that. And the reason they paid him the £500, I understand, was because if he'd been lodging an appeal, which he looked like he was going to do, although, as Mark said he wanted to be deported, but he got a bit sort of...
It was to stop him playing the ECHR card. Yeah. That's what it was to stop him.
He was, having said he wanted to be deported, he then started playing up and said he was going to play up on the plane and everything.
That's true.
And so they had to pay £500.
I totally understand what you're saying, and I understand where your mind is on this. However, I think there is a growing pressure mark, and there's a growing movement of the British public who will say, I don't care about these arrangements. I just want these people to go. And I know where you're coming from.
But how do you do it physically?
They shouldn't
how
be
do
here.
you do it? How do you do it?
Listen, I think it is reasonable to put some blame at the previous government's door. But you don't need forever and a day to turn this round. What you need is a plan that you execute very quickly. I'm not saying that you can do it in days, but you should certainly be able to do it in weeks, and definitely within months.
Well, what is the plan,
But
then?
you say if you arrived here illegally, we will not entertain your asylum claim under any circumstances. Your chances of getting asylum will be zero, right? You make that.
Then we transgress the...
I'm in favour of leaving the ECHR.
Well, yes, but we haven't left yet. We haven't left yet.
The government doesn't want us to. Yeah. There is no
they want
government
to adapt.
plan.
OK, briefly from Russell,
you should be able to do this in weeks. They have not attempted
you cannot do it in weeks.
You do that.
Let me
Guys, you do that, but you also ensure that I'm afraid that if you are here illegally, you choose to come here illegally, it is uncomfortable. Because if you are genuine, there are other more bona fide routes to this country in terms of you being able to legitimately...
There aren't proper routes.
But can I just say, can I just clear one thing up? There's this red versus blue thing with regard to, it's the Labour Party. Oh, no, it's not, it's the Conservatives. This goes back, in my opinion, back to the 90s. This goes back to Blair and Brown. Let's put the drawbridge down. Let's have this effective all refugees are welcome type attitude, which we seem to have had since 1997. This goes back to politicians of multiple decades and multiple colours. It is not just Labour.
Then you cannot turn it around. You cannot turn it around.
Well, Tony Abbott did in Australia. Tony Abbott did it like that.
I've got to leave it there, unfortunately, panel. I've got to leave it there. Unfortunately, having knowing what's going on in the press and other things, I know this will not be the last time we talk about this, sadly. It's very, very sad to say that. We've got a right of reply here. On the decision not to try the Romanian national for attempted murder, a Crown prosecution spokesperson said this: our thoughts remain with the victim and the family affected by the horrendous actions of Ion Pinatru, I can't pronounce the name, beg your pardon, who remains criminally responsible and will be sentenced accordingly. The decision to accept a guilty plea to wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm was taken after carefully reviewing evidence provided by two separate expert psychiatrists. The impact of the expert evidence meant that we could not prove that Pinatru specifically intended to kill, which is an essential element of attempted murder offence. We explained our decision to the family in detail and will continue to assist and support them.
Come on.